Part 61. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Rusiahua. Chapter 622. The camel-eating team arrived at Bailong Center. Zhongqing greeted them downstairs and took Zhuntang's special elevator upstairs. Shang Guandandan watched Zhongqing press the elevator floor buttons, and then press the remaining floor buttons again and again. This elevator goes directly to Zhuntang's residence. Of course, it doesn't have many floor buttons. Zhongqing looked at the beautiful girl acting like a naughty child, with the corner of his mouth slightly raised without any unnecessary emotion. Lu Chang'an extinguished the floor buttons that Shang Guandandan pressed, and suggested, "Next time I send you to take the elevator in the office area of the office building, you can press each one, and then enjoy the various other people in the elevator." Eyes and reactions. "You want to frame me?" Shang Guandandan rolled his eyes and looked at Lu Chang'an suspiciously. Wise Lu Chang'an nodded and praised her for discovering that this was not a sincere suggestion. "There is a sofa in this elevator, it's soft." Zhou Shuling looked at the sofa in the elevator with envy. She felt that the sofas that others put in the elevator were much better than the ones in her living room at home. Zhou Dongdong was already lying on the sofa with his hands and feet spread out. "I'm still young now. When I grow up, it will be ugly if I have this posture." Zhou Shuling began to worry about the education of her children again. "It's quite ugly. A few times when I went upstairs, I saw you spreading out like this, a pancake stall." Lu Chang'an agreed with Zhou Shuling. "You even taught her how to touch her belly." I didn't touch my belly." "Nonsense," Zhou Shuling firmly denied with a slightly red cheek. This was what Zhu Beiji looked like. Zhongqing looked up at the floor display. She knew that Lu Chang'an must have some secrets. Otherwise, how could the third wife have been paying attention to him, especially after Zhongqing knew some of the third wife's secrets? She was even more sure of such a mysterious third wife. Lu Chang'an, who knows how to pay attention, may have more problems. Now it seems that when Lu Chang'an, Zhou Shuling, and Zhou Dongdong are together, they look very normal and lively men. "What's wrong with touching your belly?" Shang Guandandan lowered his head and rubbed his hands in circles under his chest. "Most people talk about belly touching, with the belly button as the center." Lu Chang'an grabbed her hands and placed them in the exact position. Although Shang Guandandan was infected by Zhou Dongdong's sitting posture, he still pays attention to his image most of the time. He spreads his hands and feet on the sofa, and then his belly pushes up the clothes because he has eaten too much, and he raises his hands on his belly. Touching around, Shang Guandandan had never done such an action. "You have a baby." After Shang Guandandan touched his belly, he came to his senses and touched Zhou Shuling's belly. "I didn't, I just ate a little bit sometimes and felt relieved." Zhou Shuling quickly explained that children's words are unbridled, and a little girl like Shang Guandandan probably still doesn't understand that Zhou Shuling is a single woman. How can there be a baby? After saying a few words about belly rubs, the elevator had arrived at the destination floor, and Qinyanan stood outside the elevator to greet her. "Here we come." Qinyanan enthusiastically held Shang Guandandan's hand. Shang Guandandan nodded. Although Shang Guandandan's favorite daughter-in-law is still Zhou Shuling, she is also very satisfied with Qinyanan. Qinyanan has a familiar feeling to Shang Guandandan. It's not that she saved Qinyanan's past. But Qinyanan's demeanor are similar to those of the women from the imperial relatives who came to the palace to talk to Shang Guandandan. "Dongdong, my sister found a camel." Qinyanan greeted Zhou Dongdong again. Camel is man's best friend. The education that primary school students receive is that these and other animals are good friends of humans. When they grow up, they will realize that these and other animals are delicious. So, is Zhou Dongdong sensible early? Lu Chang'an touched Zhou Dongdong's head and said to Qinyanan, "Okay, I know it's all your fault, so I have to express my credit one by one." "How can I show my merit?" Qinyanan originally decided to talk to Lu Chang'an after sitting down in the restaurant. She only stopped being angry when playing cards that day, and now she is back to being angry with him. "Excuse me, Miss Jean, please ignore him." Zhou Shuling hit Lu Chang'an, a bit annoyed. The left corner of Qin Yinan's mouth turned up, and the right corner of her mouth turned up. After a delay of half a second, she responded to Zhou Shuling with a slight movement of her eyebrows and eyes, forming a smile that seemed a little helpless. Shang Guandandan looked at Qin Yinan and then at Zhou Shuling. The two women seemed to not like each other that much, but they felt that there was no reason to directly target each other. Judging from the conversation just now, Zhou Shuling should have just unconsciously revealed her closeness to Lu Chang'an in life, and Qin Yinan felt that there was some minor emotion between herself and Lu Chang'an, and it was not Zhou Shuling's turn to interfere with it. He didn't know if they would come to ask him for advice, but Shang Guandandan was very much looking forward to showing off his skills. Arriving at the restaurant, Zhu Huntang, the real host of this camel feast, was already sitting at the dining table, waiting for the guests to take their seats. Everyone is acquaintances. Zhu Huntang did not want to be as polite and considerate as Qin Yinan. She just sat here and waited, and then everyone started eating. Since she did not insist on integrating into the social circle of world-class celebrities, Zhu Huntang there is no longer any interest in persisting in all kinds of red tape. "Dong Dong, sit with me." Zhu Huntang still loved Zhou Dongdong the most. Seeing Zhou Dongdong come in, he ran over to ask Zhongqing for help, and hugged Zhou Dongdong, who was motionless and lost his ability to control himself. "Put it on the seat next to her." "How come the camel is placed directly on the sand?" Zhou Shuling approached Lu Chang'an and asked in a low voice. The living conditions of rich people were completely beyond Zhou Shuling's imagination. "This is not sand, it is actually cheese made into irregular particles, which is edible," Qin Yinan explained. "Not bad," Lu Chang'an praised it. This camel feast was really well prepared. The entire dining table was covered with cheese particles, as fine as sand, like a miniature desert scene. On this cheese base, there is the main course of the banquet, a kneeling camel, and on this cheese desert, there are Arab-style palaces made of pastries, and a camel caravan made of chocolate. Merchant, an oasis flowing with wine, blends the whole roasted camel into the desert style. "I'll do it," Lu Chang'an said to the chef, who was standing aside, waiting for the camel to be divided when the banquet began. Zhu Huntang nodded, and the chef handed the cart containing many knives and food-sharing tools to Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an took off his coat, washed his hands, and first grabbed the rabbit from the camel's belly. I tasted the taste of the rabbit. It was fresh and tender with a hint of chewiness. The marinade was perfectly flavorful. The gravy from the camel and sheep also blended into the rabbit meat, which was very delicious. "You are an expert," Zhu Huntang said as expected. Lu Chang'an took out the rabbit with the most unique flavor as soon as he came up. He was indeed a bad old man who could make Zhu Huntang call him grandpa. Lu Chang'an distributed the rabbits to everyone, then took the sheep out of the camel's belly and cut up the meat carefully. A camel, a sheep, and a rabbit. Even if there were the three giants under the sycamore tree, it would be impossible to eat them all at once without transforming, so Lu Chang'an just picked the most delicious parts first. Divide it among everyone and start eating the outermost camel last. This meal lasted for 3 hours, and everyone started to rub their bellies except Shang Guandandan and Qin Yinan. Lu Chang'an asked Zhu Huntang if he could handle the remaining camel meat. After receiving the agreement, Lu Chang'an asked for it. 2 large food boxes were used to bring the camel meat back cleanly. Of course he doesn't want to continue eating it or put it in the refrigerator. This meat is freshly grilled, tender and delicious. It still tastes good after it has been cooled and then reheated before it was put in the refrigerator. He distributed the remaining camel meat to the neighbors in the community. Roasted camel was not easy to eat, so it was a fresh meal for the old men and women. Qin Yinan and Lu Chang'an walked around the community together to finish delivering the camel meat. "Uncle Qian just now, he still can't speak well today." After delivering the camel meat, Qinyanan and Lu Chang'an talked in the night. The shyness on Qinyanan's cheeks was hidden in the night wind. The corners of her mouth did not curl up, but her lips naturally curled up a little. It was obvious that there was something sweet in her mood. Joy. Once you sent me out and met him on the road, didn't he say that I looked like Shui Baoke? Qinyanan still remembered that she was quite happy at that time. Later Lu Chang'an explained that Shui Baoke had a round face with oval ginkgo eyes, which immediately made Qinyanan I remember this old man with bad eyesight. When Lu Chang'an sent camel meat today, he actually didn't miss out on this old man's share. Today, this old man is still, not good at talking, saying that Qinyanan is a good housekeeper. Good wife, didn't good wife refer to other people's wives? She is just his sister. Qinyanan explained in her mind. As for old man Qian not being able to hear, what does that have to do with her? Anyway, I explained myself. This old man is quite annoying. Every time I win his money, he has to ask me to play cards to win it back. On the contrary, I was playing cards with Duntun recently. When he lost, he acted like a bachelor and generous, and he didn't brag. I'm going to win the cowhide in Dandan's thermos. Lu Chang'an also said something about old man Qian. Why don't you ask me why he can't speak well? Qinyanan snorted lightly, but his mood was not affected too much, so the hum was still floating, like spider silk swaying under the street lamp, bathed in light and faint about. Did you just say that you look like Shui Baoke? Lu Chang'an shook his head. Women can really hold grudges. Good wife? He said I am your good wife. Qinyanan rolled her eyes at him. She only remembered that she was said to look like Shui Baoke, but didn't she remember that she was said to be his good wife? This bad old man really doesn't know how to speak. Lu Chang'an agreed angrily. He actually agreed. It's obviously her who can say that old man Qian can't speak. He should, according to his style of flirting with girls, shouldn't he say, I think what he said today is quite right. You are also a bad old man who can't speak. Qinyanan snorted and wanted to ignore him. I recommend a book Creating a Game World to get the ability to create a virtual game world. You can go to Hong Kong. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 623. Lu Chang'an sent Qinyanan away from the community. A few cars came and went, making wrinkles in the quiet night. The footsteps of the two people seemed to be caressing the wrinkles, smoothing them gently. Although he didn't want to pay attention to Lu Chang'an, on such a cold street, the two people's pace seemed to be stepping on the frequency of their hearts, so it was natural for their eyes to be attracted to him. As for the tenderness overflowing in their eyes, it was no wonder. She has nothing to do with whether she wants to care about him or not. Shang Guandandan ate the most tonight, followed by Zhou Shuling and Zhou Dongdong. You also ate a lot, which deserves praise. Lu Chang'an summarized the camel eating incident today and frowned slightly. Zhu Huntang is a bit annoying. I just ate some rabbit meat, and then I kept taking pictures of Zhou Dongdong eating, and also took pictures of other people's exaggerated expressions when eating. I suspect that before eating, she had already taken many selfies with camels. You are really weird. She is a little fairy and of course she has a small appetite. You also hate this. Qinyanan was a little happy to be praised, but she was ranked behind three people. No, think about it carefully. Should be ranked behind Zhou Shuling and Zhou Dongdong. Lu Chang'an did not mean to praise Shang Guandandan, but he sounded very happy that Zhou Shuling and Zhou Dongdong were so good at eating. It doesn't matter if he ranks behind Zhou Dongdong. He is a child after all, but Zhou Shuling, Qinyanan is a little unhappy again, but she won't show it. She must not be jealous, lest it adds fuel to the fire and causes some tension between him and Zhou Shuling. If there is any ambiguity, then the gain outweighs the loss. It's not that there is anything wrong with Zhou Shuling, it's just that, Qinyanan was originally responsible for many things, but Zhou Shuling was a bit overstepping. For example, Today I heard Shang Guanduntun and Zhou Dongdong discussing who should sit under the electric heating table while watching TV at night. And also learned that Zhou Shuling bought the electric heating table for Lu Chang'an. She bought such a home-like thing as an electric radiator, which made Qinyanan quite uncomfortable. Qinyanan had never used an electric radiator, otherwise she would have bought it together with the last time she bought electrical appliances. Usually it was either floor heating or a heater. Or central air conditioning. I have never used this thing. Zhu Huntang still doesn't know that Sunangxiu is the third wife. Lu Chang'an smiled. Why didn't she think of it? She feels a bit stupid. Logically speaking, she should be able to think divergently on these things that require random thinking. Because she is extremely afraid of the third wife, so she doesn't dare to think about messy things even if she feels something is wrong. Qinyanan actually wanted to tell Zhu Huntang, but this matter is not simple, and may involve some internal affairs within the Zhu family. The problem is, Qinyanan is not good at overstepping her boundaries. She is not suitable to offend Sunangxiu now. After all, she has regular pregnancy tests and so on, and she has to rely on Sunangxiu's help. When she goes to the hospital, she may have to keep her mouth shut or find a very reliable doctor. Is also very troublesome. But she treated us to camels today. Next time she comes to provoke me, I will let her go once. Lu Chang'an can't say that he will let her go in the future, that is impossible, and Zhu Huntang can't possibly provoke him again. As long as she lives, she will continue to seek death. Xiao Tang is actually quite cute. Don't you think? She is cuter than many girls. Qinyanan couldn't name her, but whether from the perspective of a best friend or from an objective perspective, Qinyanan Nandu felt that there was nothing wrong with his statement. Please don't try to package your poor brain into cuteness. Lu Chang'an shook his head. I sent you here. It seems that the person walking Zhu Huntang's cat over there is not Zhong Cheng. The cat can be walked if it's okay. It's not a dog. It's another assistant. Qinyanan knew him. Good night. Good night. Lu Chang'an nodded, watching Qinyanan walk over and say a few words to the catwalker, and then went upstairs to find Zhu Huntang together. When Lu Chang'an returned home, he saw Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong huddled together under the electric heating table, sitting and watching TV. I think back then, this man was actually able to depose and establish the throne, but now he is competing with stupid children for the position under the electric heating table. This is simply the best evidence that things in the world are unpredictable. There's something wrong with your eyes. Are you trying to hurt me again? Shang Guandandan looked at Lu Chang'an suspiciously while touching Zhou Dongdong's soft belly. Back to the Queen Mother. No. Lu Chang'an cupped his hands, sat on the sofa behind the electric heating table, and watched TV. Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong were actually watching the Military and Agriculture channel, and what they were talking about was probably the use of aircraft in modern agriculture. In addition to the common aircraft for sowing, controlling insects, and spraying water, there are also drones that monitor the growth of crops. Lu Chang'an can understand that Zhou Dongdong will watch this show, because there are planes flying around, and she will find it interesting. But Shang Guandandan actually didn't watch the touching drama about family ethics, in which the eldest wife fights against the mistress, the whole family exploits the daughter, and the whole family is not a good person. Only the daughter is self-respecting, self-reliant, bullied, and still loves her family deeply. If we live a long time, we might be able to dominate the world in the future, Shang Guan said with a solemn tone. You think too much. Why? Even if we can't unify the whole world, how about we build our own country? Shang Guandandan already has a certain knowledge of modern political institutions. At present, there are still some small countries with kings and so on. In this case, are there any problems in finding a country to rebuild the Lu dynasty? It just so happened that his surname was Lu, which could mean that this was a kind of providence. When he woke up, his surname was Lu again, and it was time to continue the Lu dynasty. In the early years, I stayed in a village. The village chief was so angry that he established a country in the village because his wife was raped by a movie player in the town. He also formed a harem, made his sister-in-law the queen, and his son was eldest. Gozi is the crown prince, and his second son, Gozi is the second prince. I helped his sister-in-law cure the country's diseases, so he wanted to make me the imperial doctor. After I refused, he thought I disliked the junior official, so he made me the king's doctor again. Master, and later he named me the 9th generation. Lu Chang'an recalled. I just don't know what to say, Shang Guandandan sneered, revealing the majesty of the super empire queen mother back then. Yes, the title of this 9th generation is very confusing. I mean, why don't you take the opportunity to replace it? You don't know what I mean. Lu Chang'an looked at the insulation blankets in front of him and wondered what Shang Guandandan was doing under the electric heating table. After he became the emperor, he did not work diligently and care for the people. Instead, he used the name of the draft to let people, the cousins and sisters-in-law in the village, took turns sleeping with him, but he did not molest the girls because he was afraid that the villagers would rebel. Later, when I went to the town to do business, I went to the police station to report him, and 2 policemen came back and suppressed him. Shang Guandandan got out from under the electric heating table, looked back at Lu Chang'an with a thoughtful expression, and went back to quickly occupy his position, because Zhou Dongdong was ready to make a move as soon as he saw Shang Guandandan getting up. I have to occupy the most comfortable place alone. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 624. Lu Chang'an doesn't have much interest in being an emperor, especially since the current environment is really not suitable for the profession of emperor. After all, the term emperor can easily make people think of doing whatever you want, doing whatever you want, doing whatever you want. I don't know why, but when it comes to doing whatever you want, you can't help but keep talking. Nowadays, social media and the spread of public opinion are so developed that it is easy to create pressure. In ancient times, there were even officials and censors, which put a lot of pressure on the emperor's words and deeds, let alone now. It's really not interesting to live in the spotlight of countless people, with people pointing fingers at you all day long. Unless he becomes a tyrant who rules the world, but that is not in line with the core values of socialism. Lu Chang'an felt a little useless thinking about these things. He closed his eyes and sat at the electric heating table to keep warm. It is easy for people to want to have a good time. Fall asleep. So Lu Chang'an got up and snatched Zhou Dongdong away from Shang Guandandan, held him in his arms, and fell asleep while stroking Zhou Dongdong's soft belly. In winter, sleeping with a chubby child in your arms is the only way to feel comfortable. The days after New Year's Day flew by unknowingly, and Lu Chang'an University's first semester was coming to an end. The students who had just learned how to skip classes in the first semester also returned to class in large numbers. The most common place for cramming is in school. Of course, universities are even more so than high schools and junior high schools, except for catching up on holidays at the end of the holidays. This is the case with homework. Zhu Huntang and Lu Chang'an sat together, complaining that studying was too stressful. During the New Year's Day, during those 3 days, I followed that old man. Of course, he was not as annoying as you. Zhu Huntang nonchalantly explained how annoying the other person was, and then said, I have to attend 2 lectures every day. Hours. I still have to read the reading assignments he assigned, including English, French and Italian. It's really baffling. Why do you think I can understand so many languages? I'm surprised that you can know the difference between English, French, and Latin. After all, they are all twisted letters, Lu Chang'an said with a hint of praise. The requirements for the lamb can't be too high. She praised her for showing a little bit of common sense. It's all your fault, Zhu Huntang said depressedly. Of course she didn't complete those assignments, so Zhongqing refused to help her make an appointment with a private custom designer who specializes in low-skirt design, which made Zhu Huntang a little anxious. After all, it's already January, and summer styles must be booked early, otherwise, if the weather starts to get warmer, she won't have any little skirts to wear. What does it have to do with me? Lu Chang'an replied casually while reading the book. If you could unify the whole world and promote Chinese to the status of English today, no, promote it as the only language, then do I need to know English, French and Italian? Zhu Huntang said matter-of-factly. The more he got even more angry and tried to step on Lu Chang'an's toes. Having the ability but not taking responsibility is called a corpse, a corpse. The corpse is a vegetarian meal. Don't be embarrassed about using idioms, okay? And this idiom is inappropriate in your context. Lu Chang'an waved his hand. Maybe we can really unify the whole world. Zhu Huntang suddenly became interested and swept away the decadence caused by the pressure of intense study. By then, our Zhu Fenglai sword sect will manage 9 continents and 4 oceans, and we will set up our headquarters in Antarctica. Why Antarctica? There are penguins in Antarctica. Penguins are so cute. Zhu Huntang put his hands close to his hip line again, raised his palms, and followed the swaying imitation of penguins. The penguin is not cute. It only keeps saying one sentence to people, do you want to charge Q coins? Charge Q coins. It will only say the sentence when it meets aliens, super life forms, foreign prime ministers, and underwater creatures. Zhu Huntang still understood this, so Zhu Huntang lay on the book and laughed, shrugging his shoulders. Classmate Zhu Huntang, is the point I made so funny? Or do you think it's fun to take my class? The teacher suddenly stopped teaching and looked at Zhu Huntang with a half smile. It's not funny, it's not happy. Zhu Huntang quickly explained that she still doesn't put on airs with teachers, especially in class. Other students burst into sporadic laughter. It is always a happy thing to see such a person who is prone to psychological imbalance being called out. The teacher didn't say anything more and continued the lecture. How are you preparing for the final exam? Lu Chang'an lowered his voice and asked with interest. Many people like to gloat about misfortune, because it is indeed a pleasant thing, and chasing pleasure is the instinct of human beings. Lu Chang'an just wanted to express that he is also a human being and has the same instinct as humans. I don't know anything, Zhu Huntang said confidently. You don't know anything, how can you be so confident? Lu Chang'an kindly reminded her, think about it, your mother is so concerned about your studies, and you want to fail even the normal final exam, what will happen to you? Zhu Huntang confidently wanted to express that this matter was not important at all, but when Lu Chang'an said this, Zhu Huntang felt guilty and secretly looked around. Can you copy it for me? Do you think I study normally? Lu Chang'an spread his hands, I don't know anything. Grandpa, Zhu Huntang didn't believe it. He pouted and hugged Lu Chang'an's arm, acting pitifully. Little sheep. Lu Chang'an nodded in response. Grandpa, Zhu Huntang pulled Lu Chang'an's arm hard, as if he wanted to pull him into his arms. Fairy. Zhu Huntang immediately looked wary, but gave up the analysis because he had not offended him at this time. He told himself that the fairy should just praise her and think she was cute, rather than hiding any conspiracy. You copy the papers for me, and I will bleed for you. Don't. Can you bear to see your lovely Mount die young due to physical and mental exhaustion due to the final exam? Zhu Huntang kept blinking and firing at Lu Chang'an. She didn't need his coercion, and she consciously admitted that she was the Mount. Okay, isn't that enough? Lu Chang'an pointed at Yan Qingcheng, who was listening carefully in front of him. That's right, why didn't I think of that? You don't need to have special powers when copying papers. Whoever is copying is not copying. Zhu Huntang woke up excitedly and threw away Lu Chang'an's hand, and then became a little proud. I don't want to continue acting coquettishly. The act of tearing down the bridge when crossing the river has a slightly vindictive feeling, which is very comfortable. Lu Chang'an didn't care about this stupid sheep's behavior of burning bridges, and continued to explain kindly, with Yan Qingqing's temperament, she may be a little unhappy if she directly agrees to copy papers for you. Isn't she a tutor? At the end of the semester, you have to review, and you also have to be a tutor, which is quite busy, but while I'm giving you extra lessons, she can also review by herself, so you kill two birds with one stone, and the possibility of her agreeing is very high. I don't want to make up lessons, I just copy them, Zhu Huntang said firmly and unshakably. Lu Chang'an glanced at her, went out after class and bought a bottle of orange juice, and sent a text message to Sunangziu. Lu Chang'an returned to his seat and drank orange juice by himself. Ever since Lu Chang'an bought Zhu Huntang jasmine tea, Zhu Huntang never drank the drinks provided by Lu Chang'an, so Lu Chang'an only bought one bottle. My mother found me a tutor. Zhu Huntang looked at Lu Chang'an in disbelief when he saw Lu Chang'an coming back. What are you looking at me doing? You must have had an affair with my mother. Zhu Huntang was very angry. How could such a coincidence happen? The students around him, including Qin's Haiqiang, Wei Xuanyi, and Sun Shutong in the back row, all looked at Zhu Huntang in stunned silence. How could anyone say that about his mother? Even if you and Lu Chang'an were close, you wouldn't talk like this, right? Or Lu Chang'an, this possibility may not be impossible. Wei Xuanyi tried to make eye contact with Yan Qingcheng, who turned back in front of him. After all, both of them had seen Lu Chang'an and Qin Yinan going to the hotel. Lu Chang'an could handle Qin Yinan, and what did he have with Zhu Huntang's mother? It doesn't seem to be unusual. Where's the tape? Where's the tape? Lu Chang'an asked Qin's Haiqiang for tool support with a calm expression. I didn't bring it today, Qin's Haiqiang said embarrassedly. Zhu Huntang was just about to laugh haha twice and say you can't do anything to me, but the looks around her still made her cheeks feel a little warm, so she walked out of the classroom with her neck trembling. Her mother had already found a tutor, so she skipped class as a small protest. Isn't it natural? Lu Chang'an sat down and sighed softly. Qin Yinan had a gestational sac in his belly. This stupid sheep must not have any biological relationship with him. Today is Zhou Dongdong's birthday event. Open Kidian app and you can see the birthday celebration on the flash. You can send her blessings and get Zhou Dongdong's exclusive badge. I broke out for Zhou Dongdong today, I love her. I recommend a book carrying AK into the Ming Dynasty. In the spring of the 17th year of Chongzhen, the army besieged Bijie City. The Ming Dynasty, which lasted for more than 270 years, was in turmoil. At this time, an AK appeared. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 625. Professor Lu Jianxi discovered as early as the last century that the RNA of various organisms records evidence of the existence of many viruses that have disappeared since ancient times. Taking humans as an example, the fight between the autoimmune system and viruses began when humans were born. At first, even if these viruses died in the outside world, they eventually left traces when they fought against the human immune system, which were recorded in RNA. People who are truly biologically related to him, or who are mutated by him, such as Mrs. Karnstein, Sunangziu, and Qin Yinan, all have an RNA signature in their bodies that was only found in Lu Chang'an before. Does Zhu Huntang have it? If Zhu Huntang also developed from that kind of gestational sac, she would not have this RAN characteristic, because she is just a self-reproduction phenomenon induced by the stimulation of Sunangziu's body. Maybe this is the reason why Zhu Huntang became a fairy. After all, she was born differently and it is understandable that she has a bad mind. Speaking of self-reproduction, Lu Chang'an thought of flatworms. Most flatworms can reproduce themselves or the opposite sex, and they are often hermaphroditic, which is really amazing. But it also shows that the inequality between men and women is really not men's fault, even for such primitive creatures as flatworms. Both flatworms have the need to reproduce, but neither of them wants to be a mother, so they fight, then ** the flatworm becomes the mother. Very interesting. Lu Chang'an also discovered this behavioral pattern of flatworms while observing organisms. He has always felt that many organisms were born suddenly and died suddenly. It would be a pity if none of them were noticed. Since a bear can turn into a human, it is not impossible that Zhu Huntang will actually turn into a sheep in the future. Thinking about it, she was unwilling, so she had to study hard and improve her IQ. This was Lu Chang'an's original intention of snitching, and everything was for her own good. Lu Chang'an was a little touched. After all, he cared about disabled animals so tenderly and considerately. In fact, Zhu Huntang did not understand Lu Chang'an's various psychological activities after associating with flatworms. She was not moved at all, and skipped class angrily and confidently, and went to play with Bai Hui. Bai Hui is looking at a house near the school. She wants to buy a small apartment with a size of tens of square meters. After all, there is no room for her little skirts in the dormitory now. Many of Bai Hui's favorite little skirts can only be worn in one piece. The pieces were packed in boxes and never saw the light of day. Bai Hui couldn't bear the thought that they would not be able to show their most beautiful postures to Bai Hui. I have difficulty choosing. There are ivy outside the balcony of the house on the 3rd floor. It feels so beautiful. The light is better in the house on the 5th floor. The house on the 7th floor is larger, but it feels a bit noisy. What is the neighbor's opening? Beauty clinic. Bai Hui frowned, unable to make a decision for a moment. I bought them all, Zhu Huntang said nonchalantly. I don't have so much money, and why should I buy so many houses? There is no purchase limit for this kind of apartment, but it is not cheap either. Then just buy whichever one is bigger. You can decorate the balcony by yourself, and light is not a problem. Just install a lighting system that simulates sunlight and put it outside the window. This is what I did in some resorts near the North Pole. I want to see the aurora. Just watch the aurora, and it will dawn at whatever time you want. Anyway, the naked eye cannot tell whether the simulated light is natural light. When it comes to how to use money to solve problems, Zhu Huntang does not need a tutor. She is a teacher. He is quite qualified. That's right, I'll contact the agent later. Bai Animao paused and said enviously, Xiao Tang, you are so smart. The key is that I don't have the awareness of a rich person. You still understand me? That guy Lu Chang'an knows how to call me a fool. I am smart and brave. Zhu Huntang feels that being witty and brave is the most appropriate description of herself. She is often able to calculate Lu Chang'an, which is called witty. She often dare to provoke and murder. Lu Chang'an is called brave. Ignore him. In Lu Chang'an's eyes, girls are basically stupid. Don't I often get called stupid by him? Bai Hui's tone was a little helpless, but it revealed some active interest in this topic. Of course you are an idiot. Zhu Huntang put his hands on his hips and said to Bai Hui. Why? Bai Hui felt aggrieved. Because if you like someone, you will become a fool. I have always been a witty and brave fairy in front of Lu Chang'an. It is because I don't like him that I won't become a fool. Zhu Huntang looked at the blushing Bai Fen. He laughed. Bai Hui's face was so cute when she blushed. Zhu Huntang reached out and touched Bai Hui's cheek. I didn't, don't act like a wet guy. Bai Hui quickly opened Zhu Huntang's soft fingers. In fact, it was quite comfortable to be touched by Zhu Huntang, because the flesh of each finger of Zhu Huntang was soft and smooth. By the way, our first semester classes are all the same. It would be great if I could copy yours for the final exam, Zhu Huntang said with some worry. She didn't care about this matter at first. Even if she learned every subject, it doesn't matter if you fail. If she studies well and gets full marks in every subject, will she have to recruit a lot of people whose academic performance is not as good as hers to work in the future? That is tantamount to raising the employment threshold for others and making it more difficult for others to find jobs. The problem now is that her mother is starting to pay attention to her final exams. The bigger problem is that her mother doesn't listen to what she said and only cares about her grades. We are not from the same college, the exam dates are different, and the exam rooms will not be arranged together. Bai Hui was helpless for Zhu Huntang. Then can you take the exam for me? Zhu Huntang is always willing to use his brain on these facts. Even though we are the same height and often wear small skirts, but our figures are still different, it is easy for teachers to recognize us. Bai Hui said, a little embarrassed. That's all you have, you never forget to show off your figure, Zhu Huntang said disdainfully. That's not what I meant, really, you are too well known for me to pretend to be you. Bai Hui is actually very well known, but since he has accidentally shown off his figure just now, he is embarrassed to continue to praise himself. It's all Lu Chang'an, anyway, it's right to blame him, Zhu Huntang said worriedly, rolling his eyes. Do you think if I kidnap you, will it be considered revenge on him? First, if you kidnap me, it doesn't count as revenge on him. Second, if you take revenge on him, you will be the one who comes to me crying in the end, Bai Hui said calmly. Zhu Huntang stopped thinking. Did you know, Lu Chang'an designed a little skirt, which is super beautiful. Bai Hui slowed down her voice and told Zhu Huntang word for word. Why do you talk like an old witch who wants to feed the princess poisoned apples? Zhu Huntang looked at Bai Hui with some suspicion. That's not the point. Bai Hui then remembered that he was facing Zhu Huntang and didn't have to hide anything, so he hummed and said, that little skirt is perfect for our heights. And Nuan wears it like an adult wearing children's clothes. I don't even know, during this time, my mother asked me to take classes with my cousin's teacher. I am very tired every day. Zhu Huntang became interested and said, let's take a look. Bai Hui took out her mobile phone and saw that Huang Diamond had automatically renewed her subscription. She then entered in Nuan's space with confidence and showed Zhu Huntang her skirt. Zhu Huntang looked at it and looked at Bai Hui, both of their eyes were shining. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 626. Bai Hui saw some evil intentions in Zhu Huntang's eyes. Zhu Huntang saw some imminent feelings in Bai Hui's eyes. What do you want to do? Bai Hui continued to use the tone of an old witch who tricked the princess into eating poisoned apples, lowering her voice and speaking slowly. You are the one who wants to do it. I can see it. You have bad intentions, Zhu Huntang said with a groan. Zhu Huntang is just often played around by Lu Chang'an. After all, no matter how resourceful, witty, and brave she is, if she encounters a Lu Chang'an who is completely overwhelmed by his force value and is not afraid of her bread man, her financial power, and her background, how can she have any solution? The little fairy personally went into battle to fight against the master of the 9 provinces Fenglingjian section. Of course, she only suffered defeats at every turn and lost again and again. But it is not easy for others to fool Zhu Huntang. It is normal for her to kill them instead. Do I have one? I'm just showing you in Nuan's little skirt. Bai Hui refused to admit that she was not that evil-minded little green tea at all, just a little white flower. Stop pretending, let's not talk secretly. And Nuan's dress is really heartwarming. Zhu Huntang slapped Bai An on the back, then took Bai An's phone and looked at the photo carefully. You look at this, the detailed design. The painting on the skirt is of a woman with a graceful figure. Lu Chang'an made a moon on the corresponding gauze position. The picture set against the moon is just like that, it feels like Dongpo Ro's Moon Palace poem. And Nuan obviously likes this little skirt very much. There are more than a dozen posts related to the skirt recently. She took a lot of detailed pictures and uploaded them to the space, so that others can clearly see how beautiful her skirt is. It was so exquisite, her boyfriend had put so much thought into it. My name is Su Dongpo, not Dongpo Ro, Bai Hui corrected Zhu Huntang. She may not have a higher aesthetic ability than Zhu Huntang in terms of clothing design, but her aesthetic ability that hides the connotation of poetry and painting in details is better than hers. Zhu Huntang is much superior. After all, Zhu Huntang doesn't like reading. No matter what his name is, I know that he wrote poems about the moon. Zhu Huntang is very satisfied with his knowledge of ancient prose. Ancient people just had little knowledge and nothing interesting, so they like to hum and moan all day long. It's really boring to celebrate the Mid-Autumn Festival without eating ice cream mooncakes, chocolate mooncakes, and looking at the moon and writing poems. Not only Sudongpos when the moon is there, Xin Kijis UN11 of the green jade case was also used by Lu Chang'an. The painting is a song painting and the lyrics are song lyrics. Hey, why haven't we met a Lo who understands the use of poetry and painting elements like this? Where's the dress designer? Bai Hui sighed softly. She had looked at this dress much more often and for more time than Zhu Huntang. This dress was full of details, and she didn't know if An Nuan knew how to appreciate it. We met, he just didn't want to do it for us. Zhu Huntang returned the phone to Bai Hui and looked dully in the direction of the school. He tore so many of your socks and skirts, so he should help you design a new one, right? Bai Hui said in defense of Zhu Huntang. I have an idea. Zhu Huntang decided to use his wit and bravery. Any solution? We designed a scene to make it look like you were in bed. I took photos and threatened him to make us skirts. After Zhu Huntang finished speaking, he quickly let out a sinister laugh to show that he was serious. Do you want to die? Bai Hui was stunned for a moment, and she didn't even have time to blush. She really didn't want to see Zhu Huntang die young. Even if he doesn't make us skirts, he can still get what you want. Zhu Huntang looked at Bai Hui and laughed. In fact, most of them are joking. It's something I feel can be done, but it's not necessary, the risk is too high. Zhu Huntang feels that he would rather be a little fairy sheep that can bleat, rather than be stewed into a pot of rotten meat by Lu Chang'an. Fat sheep. What? I got what I wanted, it's obviously me who suffered the loss. Bai Hui blushed quickly. Seriously, think about it carefully. How can we get Lu Chang'an to make skirts for us? After Zhu Huntang finished teasing Bai Hui, he faced the reality with a sad face. He felt that before he got a skirt that could compare with An Nuan's skirt, Zhu Huntang's mood was not sunny at all. Look for An Nuan. Bai Hui actually had an idea. You are indeed beautiful, but you think you are too beautiful. Zhu Huntang was completely disapproving. A girl like An Nuan looks generous on the surface. She has a gentle personality and is easy to talk to. When she faces the camera with her white face, she is full of energy. Positive energy and heartwarming, just short of honey and sweet. Actually, if you want to ask her to do this kind of thing, she'd be damned if she doesn't care about you. She'll only say sorry to you. Sorry, I look like I'm sorry that I can't help you because I have no choice but to help you. This doesn't sound like what you said, Bai Hui exclaimed, but she simply couldn't agree with Zhu Huntang's evaluation of An Nuan. I used to meet this kind of people often, and I had a lot of contact with them. I couldn't get used to it, so I came to Junsha to stay. Zhu Huntang looked up at his Bailong Center, and during this time in Junsha, except for Lu Chang'an, who is a bit annoying, everything is quite comfortable, and she has begun to study hard. It is indeed more meaningful than living in other places. An Nuan, I agree with what you said a little bit, but it's not completely helpless. The situation you mentioned is when our relationship is normal, but An Nuan and I are good friends, Bai Hui said calmly and naturally. Zhu Huntang just looked at her suspiciously. You just didn't bitch around, are you considered good friends? This good friends standards are really casual. The point is, An Nuan has officially entered the trap of low skirts now. See how she likes it. Will a girl be satisfied with just a small skirt? Bai Hui showed an old witch smile to Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang also showed another old witch's smile. If you think about it, almost every girl who has fallen into the trap of low skirts will be very concerned about the past out of print, limited edition, etc. What do we have so many of? Out of print. Limited edition. Tea Party model. Commemorative model, Zhu Huntang responded loudly to Bai Hui. We can buy it for an yuan. If we can't buy it, we can lend it to her or give it to her. When she owes us a lot of favors, we will appropriately ask her to speak for us and ask Lu Chang'an to design 2 small skirts. Bai Hui Chang took out a breath and blinked. Okay, that's it. Zhu Huntang and Bai Hui high-fived and nodded vigorously. Bai Hui smiled, there was nothing that could be done about it. Who made an yuan? Lu Chang'an's girlfriend. People are born to be pampered and get whatever they want. I don't have such a unique advantage, so I can only be a little careful. This is not a bitch, right? It definitely doesn't count. If you have to ask Lu Chang'an directly for it, then you'd be considered a bitch without a bit of power. Zhu Huntang thought about it too, and he was not alone. At this time, Bai Hui's cell phone rang, but Lu Chang'an couldn't call him. His phone number, Zhu Huntang mouthed to Bai Hui, even though the call was not connected yet. Bai Hui nodded and answered the call casually. In this way, Zhu Huntang might misunderstand that Lu Chang'an and Bai Hui often chat on the phone. Bai Hui would not explain. After all, this is just a common thing between ordinary friends. Okay, no problem. Lu Chang'an asked her if she had any photo material suitable for practicing retouching, and asked her to send him a copy. Bai Hui agreed, and asked tentatively, I saw you. The skirt you designed for an yuan is very beautiful, can you also design one for me and Zhu Huntang? Zhu Huntang stared at Bai Hui dumbfounded. Just now you have been beeping so many times with all your heart and soul, but now you are directly looking for the real owner? Oh, apart from that one, I have also made more designs. Let me send you a design drawing. It is considered a completed work. You can find someone to make it directly. After all, you have helped me recently. Young master, let's reciprocate the courtesy. As for Zhu Huntang, she will talk to the tutor after class, otherwise there will be no need to talk. After Lu Chang'an finished speaking, he hung up the phone. Bai Hui tried hard to control his expression and told Zhu Huntang. I don't want to make up classes. Even if I die, I won't. Zhu Huntang clasped his hands on his chest and stamped his feet angrily. The evidence was conclusive. The sudden pressure on his mother must be caused by Lu Chang'an. Don't be like the children who don't want to go to kindergarten. Bai Hui gently comforted the child Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang ignored Bai Hui, raised his hand and snapped his fingers, and someone drove over to pick up the eldest lady and left. Bai Hui waved goodbye to Zhu Huntang's back and watched Zhu Huntang leave in the car. Then she tried to be reserved and controlled her pace, but she still looked at the cat with the dried fish in its owner's hand, meowing. He started running meowingly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 627. Zhu Huntang is a decisive young lady who skips classes whenever she wants. Even though she has been repeatedly banned, she cannot distort her will. So she simply skipped a whole day of classes, because if her mother was angry, she would have already been angry when she skipped 2 classes. So what difference would it make if she skipped a whole day of classes? This is the same as when Zhou Dongdong, a child, was at the bottom of one subject in the exam. He would not care if he was also at the bottom of other subjects. Anyway, he was beaten, and he still had food to eat at night, so it didn't matter. Zhu Huntang just feels that as the actual controller of the Zhu family, her mother has been a little too busy recently and always cares about her homework. This was not the case before. What's more, she is abroad, so she can keep an eye on Zhu Huntang's daily performance regardless of the time difference. Making Zhu Huntang very irritable. Maybe my mother has returned to China. Just like many times, it is possible that she is hiding and manipulating something behind her back. These insidious and cunning people are like this is different from Lu Chang'an. Zhu Huntang hates Lu Chang'an very much. He must also admit that Lu Chang'an is more upright and will hit you when he wants to. He will never scold you behind your back. Zhu Huntang returned to Beilong Center and happened to meet Zhongqing returning from burning incense in Hengshan Mountain. Zhongqing took the helicopter because Hengshan also has an airport. Sometimes Zhu Huntang or the third wife need to schedule a flight between Junsha Airport and Hengshan. They can go to whichever is more convenient, so they have already applied for Junsha. For the lines between Hengshan and Hengshan, the opening of low-altitude lines and new policies after 2015 have made the use of private aircraft more convenient. For example, Zhu Huntang often takes a helicopter on the fixed line between Beilong Center and Huda, and does not need to report it every time, apply once and it will be valid for a long time. Even if the flight route is not reported, it is just a fine. Generally, there are no serious punitive measures. Third miss, you have classes today, Zhongqing reminded him a little helplessly, holding some consecrated Buddhist amulets and the like, and saw Zhu Huntang walking the master on the top floor again. The door owner was having fun around Zhu Huntang. When he saw the helicopter landing on the tarmac, he rushed over and circled around the helicopter, roared a few times, and then bit the tires of the helicopter. My mother said that she found a tutor for me. Zhu Huntang did not answer, saying that he skipped class, and cleverly avoided Zhongqing's questioning. As expected, Zhongqing didn't ask any more questions. He just took out a Buddhist amulet and said, "Miss Third, I invited it for you. I will hang it around the neck of the doll on the bedside of your bedroom later to help keep you safe." Do fairies also need other bodhisattvas to protect them? Zhu Huntang was a little confused, but he didn't pay much attention to this strange phenomenon. Actually, sometimes I also wonder, if someone suddenly kneels down on the roadside and begs me, "Please let me know." If I fulfill one of his wishes, such as getting rich or something, I might suddenly be interested in satisfying him. It is common for fairies to be merciful occasionally. It's normal, just like some blood-sucking bugs that suck the blood out of a certain place's economy. They occasionally do some charity, or like the third lady, they suddenly generously help strangers to fund travel or something. There are also many people who praise it. Zhongqing he praised sincerely, Miss San has this talent of playing with people's hearts. Whether you are a company or an entrepreneur, you need this method to improve your image from time to time. I didn't think so much, I just thought it was fun. Zhu Huntang walked downstairs and said without looking back, "Didn't you go there with your relatives yesterday? Why are you the only one who came back?" "They will stay there for 2 days to watch the sunrise over the sea of clouds," Zhongqing explained. Seeing the owner leaving, the door owner stopped biting the helicopter tires and chased after him while biting the traction rope and shaking his head. The owner is so good. Zhu Huntang held the leash again. She liked walking this dog the most. It was more interesting and happier than walking other dogs. In the evening, Zhongqing went to pick up Zhu Huntang's tutor to teach Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang is already waiting in the study room. Yes, Miss Zhu San not only has her own library, but also her own study room. That's true, but when you think about the words take Zan San and study, there seems to be no bond at all. In fact, in addition to the library, the study is also Zhu Huntang's favorite place to use as a selfie background. "It's you." Zhu Huntang was surprised and angry when he saw Zhongqing bringing Yan Qingcheng into the study. Her anger was not directed at Yan Qingcheng, but at Lu Chang'an. She did not expect that she would not escape the old man's arrangement in the end. Zhu Huntang decided not to feed the owner meat pie tonight. "Qingqing, what's going on? Do you know what my mother and Lu Chang'an have, I mean, a private agreement to torture me together?" Zhu Huntang looked at Zhongqing and said. Zhongqing just raised the corners of her mouth slightly. Her seniority allowed her to be reserved occasionally. She had a good relationship with the owners of the Zhu family, so she could pretend she didn't hear such questions. Xiao Tang, it was actually teacher Yu who found me. He said he had a tutoring job for me and the salary was quite generous. When I agreed, he said his address was at Beilong Center, and I guessed that you might be the person to tutor. Yan Qingcheng also showed a look of surprise and smiled. I didn't think you would take the initiative to ask me to make up lessons, probably it was arranged by the school your mother found. Yan Qingcheng vaguely felt that she might be in love with Lu Chang'an. Otherwise, with the investment and donations from Zhu Huntang's family in Hunan University, it would be normal for the school to arrange for teachers to take turns to make up lessons for her. Zhu Huntang's mother is even less likely to pay attention to her, an ordinary female student, unless someone recommends her. The only person who recommended him could be Lu Chang'an. Even if he was his counselor, there was no reason to appoint her. It's Lu Chang'an, he asked me to ask you to make up lessons today. I ran away because I didn't want to make up lessons. In the end, my mother still found you. It was not such a coincidence. He just likes to torture me. Zhu Huntang stood up and walked out the door. No, I'm going to his house to scold him. Third miss, such an excuse is too bad. Zhongqing stopped Zhu Huntang and shook his head. Zhu Huntang sighed and sat back again. Yan Qingcheng couldn't help but smile. She had only seen people who were so resistant to learning in elementary school. I'm in the secretary's office next door. Call me if you need anything. The servant will bring you fruit and tea in a while. You can rest for 10 minutes every 50 minutes. Zhongqing left the study after saying that, and happened to meet Bai Hui looking for Mr. Zhu. Tang Wan took Bai Hui away with him. Every time Bai Hui came to see Zhu Huntang, the two of them could play for a long time just taking selfies. Bai Hui could not be allowed to delay Zhu Huntang's studies. Yan Qingcheng was still standing in the study room with her schoolbag on her back. Looking at Zhu Huntang, who was as uncomfortable as an ant on a hot pot, she felt that once some people study in their spare time, they really resist like a stress reaction. Maybe this is a disease, no wonder they are there. You are still my first classmate to visit my humble home. How about we take a selfie and take a group photo as a souvenir? Zhu Huntang saw the phone and had an idea, finding a reason to delay studying. Okay, Yan Qingcheng said helplessly. As expected, as a tutor, you often have to battle wits with naughty students or compromise and coax, but hasn't Lu Chang'an been here? After thinking for a while, Yan Qingcheng realized that for Zhu Huntang, Lu Chang'an would not be listed among her classmates. He should be an extremely close friend. Seeing them noisy and displeased with each other, Yan Qingcheng felt a little envious for no reason. After class, Zhongqing sent Yan Qingcheng downstairs. Thank you for your hard work, Zhongqing said sincerely. She could see that Yan Qingcheng had really put a lot of thought into it. Giving Zhu Huntang extra lessons seriously and responsibly would be an exhausting process. It's not hard. Taking 2 classes is more than what I usually earn from a part-time job in a month. Yan Qingcheng's hard work is hard work, but her eyes are full of positivity. Zhongqing nodded and smiled, excluding the position between relatives. Zhongqing felt that it was most suitable for Zhu Huntang to make friends with a girl like Yan Qingcheng. Zhu Huntang and Bai Hui were together, and Zhongqing felt that the two of them, if they play together too much, 2 people will lower each other's IQ limit. It was rare for Yan Qingcheng to come to the commercial center in Hedong. This was a place that her classmates highly desired. Yan Qingcheng felt that she couldn't afford it, but she would be happy just strolling around. So she went downstairs and went to the mall. Take a turn. The price tags on some things seen in the window were jaw-dropping. It felt like only a young lady like Zhu Huntang could afford them. Yan Qingcheng was about to leave when she saw a familiar figure walking into a maternal and child products store. Teacher Qin? How could she go to a maternity and baby products store? Yan Qingcheng quietly hid behind the billboard and looked around. There is no way, gossip is a woman's nature. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Rusiahua. Chapter 628. Yan Qingcheng saw that Qinyanan had not gone wrong, but chatted with the waiter at the door and walked into the area inside. The store was very big, and even though the walls were covered with floor-to-ceiling glass windows, Yan Qingcheng couldn't see much more, so she leaned over little by little, pretending to look at a big teddy bear by the window through the glass. Looking for Qinyanan. Qinyanan was standing in the area selling cribs, chatting with the waiter who received her. Yan Qingcheng could tell that, like many new mothers-to-be or young mothers, when someone was explaining some common knowledge about parenting to her, including infant products, they looked very attentive and listened, as if they were taking extra lessons. His appearance is not that of Zhu Huntang. Qinyanan nodded in response from time to time and opened his mouth to say something. The waiter answered enthusiastically and showed Qinyanan the functions of a crib next to him. After chatting for a while, it seemed from the waiter's expression that the order was completed. Then Qinyanan bought some baby sheets, mattresses, quilts, sleeping bags, and other items, and went to check out. She didn't take these things and left directly. Yan Qingcheng knew that it was probably because the crib needed to be delivered and installed, so other things could also be delivered to the door. After Qinyanan left, the way the waiter jumped up and down while talking to others was enough to show that this was a very rare and large order. Yan Qingcheng was sure that Qinyanan was not buying a crib for others, because usually when buying for others, he usually entered the store, found something, bought it and left. How could he talk in detail for so long? Yan Qingcheng also paid attention to Qinyanan's figure. On the surface, she didn't look out of shape, but when she usually saw Qinyanan, she always dressed in a way that showed off her figure. Today, Qinyanan was wearing a loose coat, even in a shopping mall with sufficient heating. She did not unzip her coat and still covered her abdomen. It's winter now, so if there is any movement, it's easy to cover it up. Thinking about it carefully, it seems like a long time ago that the last time I saw Qinyanan wearing a sexier outfit. Just now I didn't pay too close attention to Qinyanan's face, neck, fingers, and calves, which are places that easily show symptoms of late pregnancy. Let's take a closer look next time we meet her at school. In fact, there is no need to observe. Yan Qingcheng has already concluded in her heart that Qinyanan is most likely pregnant. I don't know how many months it's been, but strollers are usually bought in advance. Who would buy this thing if you're not pregnant? The most critical question is, whose child is Qinyanan's belly? Yan Qingcheng already has a target candidate in mind. Lu Chang'an, who else could be there besides him? Yan Qingcheng patted her head. This Lu Chang'an had just entered the freshman year and made the counselor's belly bigger. In comparison, those things about being a student master are nothing. Maybe this is what happens in wealthy families. Comparing it with what Lu Chang'an did, Zhu Huntang is really harmless and innocent and cute. Yan Qingcheng couldn't explain how she felt. Her evaluation of Lu Chang'an had always been ups and downs. Sometimes she thought it would be good to be friends with him, but sometimes she just wanted to avoid him. Although gossip is a woman's nature, Yan Qingcheng only wants to satisfy herself and does not spread it. She still has a sense of proportion. There is no evidence for this matter, and secondly it has spread. When investigating the origin, she herself it will also be bad luck. Yan Qingcheng was no longer interested in shopping in the mall. After walking a few steps, she saw a kind of postpartum paper underwear. This is what women use when they are in confinement. Many people think that when women are in confinement, their bodies are severely damaged by pregnancy and have to recuperate for a long time. This is not wrong, but many people, especially men, have never understood that the key point of confinement is that there will be a long period of time, some lasting more than a month. Seeing this, Yan Qingcheng suddenly remembered things related to women, such as Dakening Xuan, and Lu Chang'an's misunderstanding of Yan Qingcheng that day. Or is it just like that day, just a misunderstanding? Realizing this, Yan Qingcheng felt a little more relaxed, or maybe she didn't want Lu Chang'an to be a promiscuous person after all. Yan Qingcheng stood there and thought for a while, then casually walked into a nearby store. "Hello, what do you need?" Hearing the waiter's voice, Yan Qingcheng raised her head and realized that she had walked into this maternal and child supplies store. "Sorry, I went to the wrong place." Yan Qingcheng's cheeks were slightly red. She was just a girl who could kick boys away, and she was far from the age where she needed to buy something here. Yan Qingcheng walked out of the maternal and child products store, raised her head and exhaled, but saw Qin Yanan had come back and was looking at Yan Qingcheng with a look in her eyes. The two looked at each other. Qin Yanan held his hands on his chest, glanced at the maternal and infant products store, and then glanced at Yan Qingcheng's belly. When Yan Qingcheng saw Qin Yanan's increasingly serious and unexpected expression, she opened her mouth in surprise. She realized incredulously that Qin Yanan suspected that there was a baby in Yan Qingcheng's belly. "What are you doing here?" Qin Yanan, as Yan Qingcheng's counselor, would of course pay attention to the sight of her students sneaking out of the maternal and infant supplies store. "I went in the wrong direction," Yan Qingcheng said quickly. "I just gave Zhu Huntang a tutoring lesson, and then I went for a walk." "Oh, I know this. Zhu Huntang's mother asked me to recommend a student to tutor Zhu Huntang. I thought of you and Lu Chang'an. I asked Lu Chang'an for his opinion. He also thought you were more suitable, so I asked teacher Yu to contact you." Qin Yanan nodded. "Thank you, teacher Qin," Yan Qingcheng said sincerely. This part-time job is very important to her and can greatly relieve her financial stress. "But, I made the right move." Qin Yanan thought for a while, rolled her eyes, pointed ahead, and walked into the maternal and child supplies store again. Yan Qingcheng stared at Qin Yanan's back blankly. What did she mean? "Teacher Qin, even if you are really pregnant, you are still pregnant out of wedlock, but maybe she has obtained the certificate." "How old is Lu Chang'an?" "Lu Chang'an is not old enough." "No, I can't have random thoughts," Yan Qingcheng reminded herself. Her eyes wandered around the maternal and infant products store again, and she saw Qin Yanan looking at her inside. Yan Qingcheng left quickly. When Qin Yanan saw Yan Qingcheng leaving, she didn't buy anything more and left directly. These little girls really love gossip. Qin Yanan touched her belly and wow, the experience of the expectant mother felt really good. "I'm really immortal." Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 629. Lu Chang'an was playing Zhou Dongdong at home when he received a text message from Yan Qingcheng. "I met teacher Qin when she was buying a baby stroller. She said that she recommended Zhu Huntang as a tutor. Thank you for helping me. I'll treat you to orange juice when I get the chance, haha, I always see you drinking orange juice." Lu Chang'an nodded habitually, and then he thought that Yan Qingcheng couldn't see him nodding, but since he had already nodded, even if he responded, there was no need to send a special message to reply. She must be able to understand. Lu Chang'an smiled and realized that this text message was actually to test him. The hidden meaning was probably, "Teacher Qin is buying a stroller, does it have anything to do with you? Does teacher Qin have a child? Do you know who the father of teacher Qin's child is?" Of course, Lu Chang'an ignored such temptation, but Qin Yanan actually went to buy a stroller. "Girl, when your stroller becomes a nostalgic item with the flavor of the times, can your child be born?" Lu Chang'an wanted to send a message to Qin Yanan, but he thought it would be better to chat with her in person the next time they met, so he only sent 2 words, "Jin'er." Elder brother. Qin Yanan only replied 2 words, as if he shouted and answered from a distance. "I still want to play." Zhou Dongdong, who was lying on the back of Lu Chang'an's hand, waved his hands. "What's so fun about a cell phone? Zhou Dongdong has been left out for a minute." Lu Chang'an put down his cell phone, reached out and turned Zhou Dongdong on the back of his hand, and then walked her around the living room, Please do not imitate this. I'm a helicopter. Zhou Dongdong was so happy that he got what he wanted. He put his hands tightly against his pants, kicked his legs hard and straightened up, keeping his position lying on the back of Lu Chang'an's hands so that he could rotate smoothly. Can you think of some clever games? Lu Chang'an slowly fiddled with Zhou Dongdong while despising this child's game concept. He always looked so boring and stupid. I can't think about smart questions. If I think about a lot of things, I'll be very hungry, Zhou Dongdong replied, his eyes widening with uncertainty. I seem to be a little hungry. Lu Chang'an put her down. Zhou Dongdong stood on the floor feeling dizzy. He staggered around in a circle, crossed his legs and tripped himself, then lay on the ground. Little plane fell down. Shang Guandandan was filming the video nearby. He chuckled after filming, then sent it to Zhou Shuling, and then sent it to Qin Yinan after thinking about it. Were you in the coffin before? You ate too many pullets, and you laughed like a pullet. Lu Chang'an looked at Shang Guandandan. In many places, cluck is used to describe laughter, but strictly according to the pronunciation. It would be very strange to restore this kind of laughter. The problem is that Shang Guandandan's laughter really has this strange pinyin pronunciation. It's just that her voice has the clear and moving sound of a girl, which makes it easy for people to ignore this strangeness, but it is still like a little hen croaking. Are you scolding me? Shang Guandandan was not sure how angry he was, because Lu Chang'an's performance in recent times was pretty good. He neither tried to enslave Shang Guandandan to work, nor stubbornly resisted the mother-child relationship and her loving caress. He suddenly cursed people out of his old style, and Shang Guandandan was a little uncomfortable with it. No, I just want to discuss this issue with you objectively and rationally. Think that you smile like a hen, instead of associating you with the image of an animal like a hen and trying to belittle you. Lu Chang'an said objectively explained. You should say that my laughter is as clear and sweet as an aureole, Shang Guandandan corrected. It's as clear and sweet as an aureole. It's like a description for a primary school student's composition. Lu Chang'an stopped arguing with her about the problem. I'm going to have barbecue. Raise your hand if you want to go. Zhou Dongdong immediately got up and raised his hands. Shang Guandandan raised both hands. Lu Chang'an took his two children to have barbecue, but he didn't go to the riverside barbecue restaurant he often went to. He just ate at the place where Bai Hui and Bai Hui went to buy late-night snacks that day. By coincidence, I met the two energetic young men who were photographed by Lu Chang'an and posted them on WeChat Moments that day. This time they cuddled up together, with a charming and affectionate look between their brows and eyes. They also saw Lu Chang'an and separated unnaturally. Lu Chang'an nodded happily towards them. Thinking about their unruly past, it was probably because they suppressed their feelings for each other that they were rude and dissolute. After some criticism and education from Lu Chang'an, they finally understood themselves clearly and changed their ways. They all look like people now. It was a trivial effort, so Lu Chang'an didn't praise himself too much and calmly took the two children home. The next morning, the temperature dropped suddenly. Lu Chang'an woke up from his bed and could hear the sound of wind running through the window. He was a little reluctant to get up. It was actually very pleasant to listen to the cold wind howling in the warm bed on a winter morning. It's a different matter if the house is leaking. Lu Chang'an lay on the bed and took out his mobile phone. He didn't want to get up in the morning, so it was more comfortable to play with his mobile phone. He read the message Nuan left for him, and then searched for the recent weather near the West Lake. This cold wave has made the entire south a little colder. Surprisingly, in such weather, Zhu Huntang came to visit early in the morning, while Lu Chang'an was still lying in bed. Zhu Huntang came directly to his bedroom. What are you doing? Lu Chang'an was lying on the bed with only his head exposed and looking at Zhu Huntang. It seems like this is my first time in your bedroom. Zhu Huntang looked around casually. The 3 shower rooms I often use are all bigger than your bedroom. The shower room is just a shower room, not a bathroom. It is just a place where a shower is installed. It is considered a part of the bathroom. Sometimes, seats of various materials for resting or equipment to create a rainy atmosphere are installed, so the space is relatively large. Oh, I know you live in a mansion, do you want me to show envy and cooperate with you? Lu Chang'an asked for advice. It's not considered a luxury house, it's not even a luxury house with a single floor of 5,000 square meters, so it's not a luxury house, Zhu Huntang said disapprovingly. Should I prepare an 800 square meter bed for you? When you get up, roll it onto the conveyor belt and then transport you to the bedside, Lu Chang'an suggested. Seeing Zhu Huntang actually thinking about the feasibility, Lu Chang'an quickly asked, "What are you doing here so early in the morning?" Lu Chang'an knows that for Zhu Huntang, there is no particularly warm feeling in the bed in winter. Generally, this feeling of nostalgia can only be felt when the room temperature is much lower than the bed temperature, and the temperature of Zhu Huntang's bedroom can naturally be adjusted automatically. Even thermostatic. Therefore, rich people don't love bed much in winter, unless they are lazy. "I'll lift your quilt." Zhu Huntang came to his senses, suddenly shouted and grabbed Lu Chang'an's cup to lift it up. Fortunately, Lu Chang'an reacted quickly and grabbed a corner of the quilt, so that she could not completely lift it. But after all, the warm air in the bed was let go, and the cold wind came in. Suddenly, the comfort was gone. Lu Chang'an glared at Zhu Huntang and pulled the quilt hard. After all, Zhu Huntang was born in the year of the sheep. He didn't realize that his goal had almost succeeded and he could let go. He still refused to let go, so he was pulled by Lu Chang'an and fell onto his bed. Zhu Huntang fell heavily next to Lu Chang'an, screamed in surprise, and his eyes widened. Lu Chang'an turned his head and looked at her expressionlessly. Zhu Huntang's big eyes rolled under the fluttering eyelashes, and his cheeks suddenly turned slightly red. He quickly got up and knelt on the bed. "This is the first time I lie on the bed of a creature that can be considered a man. I have a little bit of it not pure anymore." "What do you mean by a creature that is considered a man?" Lu Chang'an waved his hand and sat up. "Don't worry, you have always been pure. No one will taint a sheep. You can pull it down. I know there is a sheep brothel," Zhu Huntang said proudly. "Why are you so proud? Do you think if you go, you will definitely become the number one?" Lu Chang'an couldn't understand her pride. "You are the top duck. If you were to be a duck, you would definitely be the top duck." "Saw salted duck, Zhu Huntang said angrily. What she was proud of was just showing her broad knowledge. Lu Chang'an stretched out his finger and poked Zhu Huntang in the forehead. Zhu Huntang opened his arms and waved twice, shouted, "I have been acupunctured," and fell on Lu Chang'an's pillow. Zhu Huntang has mysophobia, but he does not reject his grandfather's aura, so he kicked his feet in the mood to show that he was struggling. "I want to use my power to charge the acupuncture points. I still miss the way I first saw you." Lu Chang'an wanted to kick her down. Many girls thought they were cool goddesses when they were not familiar with them, but after they got acquainted with them, they discovered that they were just mentally retarded little animals. At this time, the door was pushed open, and Zhou Shuling stood at the door, staring dumbfoundedly at Zhu Huntang lying on Lu Chang'an's bed. I'm here to help close the door." Zhou Shuling reacted and hurriedly closed the door and ran away. The 7th book review contest has begun. The rewards are rich and attractive. You can pay attention to it. I recommend the novel This Japanese Speechless Is Not Too Cold, a light novel, very interesting. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 630. From the time Lu Chang'an lived upstairs, Zhou Shuling often helped Lu Chang'an close the door. Although she couldn't understand why Lu Chang'an always didn't close the door, she didn't always talk about it. Many men were like this. They had habits that women couldn't understand. They had to change them. Not only is this a thankless concept, it can also easily become a trigger for quarrels between men and women. Of course, there was no need for Zhou Shuling to help close the door in the morning, but last night Lu Chang'an said that he had blood sausages sent by Qin Yanan in the refrigerator. He ate blood sausage powder this morning, so Zhou Shuling went downstairs to get the blood sausages and take a look at him. "Have you gotten up yet? How could I have imagined seeing such an amazing scene? Early in the morning, I actually saw Zhu Huntang and Lu Chang'an sleeping on the same bed. When did the two of them get together?" Zhou Shuling had never noticed any signs of this before. Zhou Shuling knew that Zhu Huntang must have a good impression of Lu Chang'an, otherwise why would he often play with Lu Chang'an? Zhou Shuling has also seen Lu Chang'an say that Zhu Huntang is stupid, but men actually prefer girls like this who are not very smart. She is the smarter type and is not very popular with men. Should I close the door and go upstairs, or go to the kitchen to make breakfast? Zhou Shuling hesitated for a moment, then looked back at the bedroom door that she had closed, and went to the kitchen. They had already fallen asleep, and the most important thing was to have breakfast anyway. In the bedroom, Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang looked at each other. Zhu Huntang felt a little embarrassed, so he said, "Hey. Are you still in the mood to imitate a sheep's meowing?" Lu Chang'an looked at Zhu Huntang calmly. Under normal circumstances, he would have found this person incredible, but Lu Chang'an was well informed, not to mention that Zhu Huntang often made surprises, so he was not like ordinary people. He looked at her incomprehensibly. "I don't know what to say, so I usually just pretend to be cute at times like this," Zhu Huntang said matter-of-factly, then corrected himself, "No, I'm naturally cute." Lu Chang'an hated this kind of thing that was obviously a mentally retarded creature, but thought he was a cute little animal, so he kicked Zhu Huntang, trying to kick her off the bed. Zhu Huntang first grabbed the quilt, and then hugged Lu Chang'an's legs, refusing to get down, even though she didn't know the point of occupying a piece of territory on Lu Chang'an's bed. "It's disgusting. There's hair on your thighs." Just when Lu Chang'an gave up, Zhu Huntang took the initiative to let go of Lu Chang'an's thigh and touched his face in disgust. "You have to shave your legs clean so I can hug you when you touch your thighs. You won't have disgusting leg hair rubbing on your face. Do you believe I made your thighs grow hair?" Lu Chang'an glanced at Zhu Huntang's stockings. The kind that can penetrate stockings are thick and prickly. Zhu Huntang imagined having such hair on his legs, screamed, got up from the bed, and hurriedly ran out of the bedroom. Lu Chang'an stood up and took a look through the window. Zhu Huntang flapped his hands and ran away outside the community. Look at her posture, like a frightened bird flapping its wings and running away. She didn't even forget to act cute when running away. She is really a stupid sheep. Being able to scare her, Lu Chang'an's morning sleep mood was slightly restored after being disturbed by her. Lu Chang'an wrapped himself in a quilt. He no longer had the temptation of a winter quilt, so he got up with bare legs. When he heard a sound in the kitchen, he walked in. The back view of a woman busy in the kitchen has always been a beautiful scene in life. The traditional counterpart is the back view of a man sweating while working. The blood sausage should be boiled first, rather than put directly into the noodle soup. Lu Chang'an reminded Zhou Shuling that although Zhou Shuling tried to invent new dishes as always, her cooking skills had hardly improved. Lu Chang'an had to pay attention and don't let her waste it. "Excellent blood sausage." "Oh," Zhou Shuling responded. "I don't know why, but when I saw these blood sausages this morning, I felt a little relaxed when cutting them." "What unhealthy things are you thinking about?" Seeing Zhou Shuling's expression, Lu Chang'an knew that she was thinking wildly. Although he didn't mind being misunderstood, considering that he actually thought that he would get together with Zhu Huntang, this was unbearable in comparison. What's more, if he didn't explain it, looking at her fierce gesture towards the blood sausage, Lu Chang'an was really worried that she would accidentally chop off her fingers. "I don't have one." "How could I?" Zhou Shuling rolled her eyes. Yesterday, I helped Zhu Huntang find a tutor. She must have been holding in her anger all night. She wanted to take off my quilt early to take revenge on me. Lu Chang'an knocked 10 times on Zhou Shuling's head. What are you thinking about? What are you thinking about? What are you thinking about? I'm not thinking about anything, I just think it's not good for third miss to be here so early in the morning, so I'll close the door for you. Zhou Shuling touched her head to stop him from knocking any more. Fortunately I am no longer a child like Dong Dong who needs brain development. Being beaten like this feels like I will be knocked out of my wits. Thank you. Then Lu Chang'an held Zhou Shuling's head blocking hand and nodded sincerely in thanks. Disgusting, Zhou Shuling took out her hand and smiled angrily. This person really loves to show off. Lu Chang'an went to wash his face and brush his teeth, and felt relieved that there would probably be no problem with today's breakfast. When preparing to have breakfast, Shang Guandandan actually brought Zhu Huntang back. It turned out that Zhu Huntang calmed down after running to the gate of the community. He was just frightened. Under normal circumstances, the bad old man was definitely not so bad. Let her, what good does it do him to have thick, black hair on his thighs? Wouldn't it be better to give her a way to defend herself against him when he comes to rip off her socks in the future? Zhu Huntang panicked at the thought of such hair growing on his legs. It did not mean that he was afraid of Lu Chang'an, so Zhu Huntang wanted to turn back. He also felt that it was a bit shameful to run away just now. He happened to meet someone who bought four at the vegetable market. Shang Guandandan came back from Zhuzi. After Shang Guandandan heard Zhu Huntang tell the whole story, he decided to protect Zhu Huntang and assured Zhu Huntang that if Lu Chang'an allowed Zhu Huntang to grow thick black hair on his legs, Shang Guandandan would have a way to help Zhu Huntang recover as before. Feeling that he had a backer, Zhu Huntang followed Shang Guandandan arrogantly and came to the door again. Miss Third, you can have breakfast here. Zhou Shuling stood up quickly. She was apologetic for misunderstanding, but she didn't make an extra breakfast. She could give Zhu Huntang hers. Anyway, she was going to the store soon. It is also very convenient to eat in the store. Thank you, but I don't like to eat noodles. I'm losing weight. I drank milk in the morning. Zhu Huntang still remembers eating the red soup spicy rooster noodles set up by Lu Chang'an and Zhou Shuling. At that time, Zhu Huntang felt that she might die. Leave her alone, she eats grass. Lu Chang'an waved his hand and motioned for Zhou Shuling to sit down. Zhou Dongdong has already started, and the rice noodles are sucked into her little mouth like the replay of the rice noodles machine. Only Shang Guandandan looked at the skin of the blood sausage suspiciously. This is blood sausage, just like ham sausage. Zhou Shuling quickly explained that there is nothing you can do about it. Sometimes children just don't like to eat certain things, but if you lie to her that those things are something else, they can still eat them. Very happy. After hearing that it was something similar to ham sausage, Shang Guandandan ate it happily. She was willing to eat ham sausage. She was just a little suspicious that these blood sausages seemed a bit like the pig intestines that Lu Chang'an tricked her into eating. Pretty much the same feeling. Lu Chang'an looked serious. Since Shang Guandandan felt that Zhou Shuling was her favorite daughter-in-law, she must have been coaxed into eating pig intestines by her daughter-in-law. Shang Guandandan must have accepted it, and Lu Chang'an had no reason to laugh. The sound comes. Sorry, the title of the book I recommended last time was wrong. It should be This Japanese Story Is Not Too Cold, which is a very interesting novel, so I recommend it again. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 631. After breakfast, Zhou Dongdong and Lucine went to school. Zhou Shuling wanted to go to Bailong Center with Zhu Huntang, but Zhu Huntang obviously did not have this intention. Shang Guandandan went downstairs to boil water. She didn't boil water when she got up this morning, but went to the vegetable market, so she boiled it now. Lu Chang'an changed his clothes and glanced at Zhu Huntang, who was clicking around on his computer. "There is nothing on my computer that you can use to ridicule, threaten, or use as a handle," Lu Chang'an told Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang casually threw the mouse away, which was not interesting at all. "I'm going to school, are you going?" Lu Chang'an asked. Zhu Huntang nodded. Even though she felt that she had received supplementary lessons, why did she still go to school to study? But after she told her mother in this way, she didn't get a reply, so Zhu Huntang didn't dare to skip class confidently. Zhu Huntang believed that her mother had seen the message, but the third wife's failure to reply certainly did not mean acquiescence, but rather don't try. So Zhu Huntang followed Lu Chang'an downstairs and saw Shang Guandandan sitting on a long bench. His soft and small hands were carefully tearing the white silk on the orange petals, and his two red lips were pursed together. Looking serious as if she was doing some meticulous artistic work. The kettle beeped. Shang Guandandan imitated the kettle and yelled beep, then touched his own thermos kettle lovingly, and then lifted the kettle to fill it with water. "Dan Dan, you are hard-working and brave," Zhu Huntang praised. Lu Chang'an couldn't help but glance at Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang was probably the only person who would praise Shang Guandandan for his hard work and bravery. Even Zhou Dongdong, who likes Sister Egg very much, can subconsciously tell that Shang Guandandan's housework is not even comparable to Zhou Dongdong's. Zhu Huntang is different. She does almost nothing except talking. When it comes to housework, Zhu Huntang is not on par with Shang Guandandan, but is willing to be inferior. Maybe this is because there is no laziest, only lazier. Shang Guandandan nodded reservedly, not feeling much pride at Zhu Huntang's praise, but just glanced at Lu Chang'an. "I gave Dongdong an orange and Dongdong's mother an orange. I want to eat one myself and leave the remaining one for you." Shang Guandandan took out the last orange from the plastic bag and handed it to Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an looked at her suspiciously. Logically speaking, orange was just an old joke, but for Shang Guandandan, who had been thinking about how to make Lu Chang'an her son all day long, he must doubt her intentions. Zhu Huntang took the initiative, and when Lu Chang'an saw Shang Guandandan couldn't help but reveal a hint of disappointment, he knew that his suspicion was right. Shang Guandandan didn't say anything. He went back to the room, took an egg, wrapped it in soaked paper, and placed it on the edge of the small stove to bake. The remaining heat of the briquettes must be fully utilized, otherwise one briquette can only be used to burn one egg a day. A pot of water, Shang Guandandan felt it was too wasteful. "Dan Dan, you can also bake eggs, I can't do anything else," Zhu Huntang once again sincerely praised Shang Guandandan. Lu Chang'an gave Shang Guandandan 50 yuan as usual and walked out of the community. "You have to keep the roasted eggs nearby and turn them over after a while, otherwise they will be burnt, or the protein inside will be hard and not delicious if they are not crispy," Shang Guandandan said about his roasted eggs. "Experience. Do you want to go to our school to play?" Zhu Huntang invited enthusiastically. Shang Guandandan hesitated for a moment and shook his head. "I don't dare to go to such a far place yet. I'll wait until Lu Chang'an takes me there once before I go." "Okay, I'll leave first." Zhu Huntang waved goodbye to Shang Guandandan. Shang Guandandan sat on a small bench, waved his hand, and then began to eat the oranges he had just peeled. After a while, everyone had finished breakfast and went out for a walk, and then they could gather at the house of the proprietress of the canteen to play cards. Zhu Huntang ran and caught up with Lu Chang'an. "Dan Dan is really amazing. She is such a small person and can boil water and bake eggs. She must have built the stove herself. I remember the last time I made a fire, it was when Yaya and I went to worship the Bodhisattva. A handful of incense was burned into a torch." Zhu Huntang tried his best to praise Shang Guandandan. There were many cute, beautiful, and capable girls around him. Why did he always focus on building number 2? He looked more at such beautiful girls as Bai Hui, Dan Dan, and Zhu Huntang's best sister Qin Yinan. Objectively speaking, Zhu Huntang feels that Qin Yanan is the most suitable character to be the palace lady. It is not because Qin Yanan is also the woman Zhu Huntang likes. Even if Lu Chang'an wants to find many beautiful girls as wives, he must first marry the palace lady. The flag is raised. In terms of figure, appearance, and temperament, Miss Xiaonan is the best, followed by Bai Fen, Dan Dan, and so on. Are you serious about praising her? Lu Chang'an turned to look at Zhu Huntang with admiration on his face. I don't dare, as the saying goes, a gentleman does not stand in water and fire, which means that smart people should stay away from boiling water. Zhu Huntang touched his skin and imagined that his soft skin was being. I shuddered at the sight of boiling water or fire scalding me. That means you have to boil a kettle, the water is scalding hot, and the kettle is also scalding hot. It's very dangerous just thinking about it. First, there is no saying in the saying that a gentleman will not stand under fire and water. Second, what you said is that a gentleman will not stand under dangerous walls. It has nothing to do with the place where water is boiled. Third, even if your Zhu family, his ancestors invented the saying that a gentleman does not stand in the midst of fire and water. His grandma's saying has nothing to do with boiling water. Lu Chang'an glared at Zhu Huntang. He was so ignorant and unskilled that Lu Chang'an wanted to curse Zhu Huntang. Be the first person. Oh, Zhu Huntang nodded to show that he understood. Lu Chang'an quickened his pace. Zhu Huntang hurriedly chased after him. Slow down, hey, you just said bad words. You said something about his grandma. None of your business. Speaking foul words again. Lu Chang'an suddenly stopped and Zhu Huntang bumped into Lu Chang'an's back. Zhu Huntang frowned and was thankful. If Bai Hui or Qin Yanan hit Lu Chang'an's back like this, it would hurt them to death. Fortunately, he was fine. When I read to Zhou Dongdong in the future, I can't let her fall asleep after hearing the text, otherwise she will be like you when she grows up. Lu Chang'an thought about it and said, also, I want to propose to your mother. I must hire a teacher who teaches basic traditional culture for you during the winter vacation. Zhu Huntang was stunned for a moment, opened his mouth, and finally did not utter a baa sound of protest. He raised his fist angrily and hit Lu Chang'an. The uncle could bear it, but the fairy couldn't. Zhu Huntang could no longer bear Lu Chang'an's bullying. Rabbits can bite people when they are anxious, let alone sheep. Zhu Huntang punched one after another. Each punch was accompanied by the power of wind and thunder, which was the unique skill of the 9 provinces Wind and Thunder Sword sect. Lu Chang'an was unable to stop her with lightning and thunderous punches. Zhu Huntang's burst of anger made her enter the small universe mode, and she immediately beat Lu Chang'an until he vomited several bowls of blood. The blood was dripping, the blood was flowing, he was covered in blood, it was horrible to look at. Even so, Zhu Huntang showed no mercy, looking at his miserable appearance coldly, and then arrogantly raised his toes with his slender legs wearing little socks and kicked his butt hard, causing him to hit the wall like a wild goose on a flat sand. On the top, the entire wall collapsed, completely burying Lu Chang'an. The above are all the imaginary effects of Zhu Huntang. Grandpa! Don't do it, Zhu Huntang panicked and hugged Lu Chang'an's arm like a baby. Don't torture such a cute baa. I'll learn how to bleed for you. I'll tear off your socks and skirt for you. I'll buy you some tape. It's pink, with little fairy patterns on it. Lu Chang'an shook his head and allowed Zhu Huntang to hold his arm and whine and struggle regretfully. It was just like Zhou Dongdong, who didn't want to be a first grader and insisted on going to kindergarten. I recommend Suanhun Daozang by Misguided Persons. It is a bit of an anti-spiritual revival. It is a very interesting novel.